All right, thank you guys. Happy Monday to you. Now, if you want to save yourself some time, my quick pick recap is at the end of this video, where all my picks in this video can be found kind of in, rapid fire succession. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive into some Week 7 action. And with that, we're going to start with the Giants taking on the Eagles this Thursday. And that's going to be an 8:20 p.m. Eastern kickoff at the Link. The Eagles are the 6-point favorite. Total's 44.5. We're 3-0 in our last three Dog of the Day tier package plays on patreon.com/Brock Page. And access to that premium sports content and that particular package costs just $4.99. We're also hitting at 65% in our last 21 crowd pleaser teasers on that site as well. We currently have over 790 members signed up and active on that page. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, the link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/Brock Page. Now, the G-Men are plus 210 for a straight-up win on the money line. And if you like the Giants catching the 6, they're minus $110, getting the job done against the number. Now, the Giants are coming fresh off their first victory of the 2020 season, a 20-19 effort over division rival Washington. 4 out of the Giants' 6 games on the season have been decided by one score. They've been highly competitive despite their record. Darius Slayton has 25 catches for 406 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's averaging over 16 yards per reception. Now, this Giants defense also has 15 sacks on the year, 8 takeaways, thanks in part to 4 interceptions from this secondary. Blake Martinez leads the defense with 64 tackles, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery. Williams and Fackrell each have 3 sacks apiece. And James Bradbury's got himself 2 interceptions from that corner position. The Giants defense held their opponents to 19 points or less in 3 out of their last 5 ball games. Now they're taking on an Eagles squad who's on a 2-game losing streak, just 1-4-1 for the entire season. This Eagles team is giving up 28 points a game, and they haven't held their opponents to less than 20 points once. This Eagles secondary has just 2 interceptions on the season. Meanwhile, offensively, Carson Wentz has been sacked 25 times for an average of 4.2 sacks per contest. Wentz is also completing a dismal 58% of his passes, and he's thrown 9 interceptions. He's currently thrown for more interceptions than touchdowns. And when facing a pesky defense like the Giants, this stat certainly won't help. The Eagles are averaging 1.2 fumbles per contest. Now, the Eagles are also a winless 0-2 this season at the Link. And when it comes to the total in this one, Philadelphia's last 5 straight all got over the total of 44.5 points. Their defense just hasn't been good enough. Meanwhile, 2 out of New York's last 4 got over that number themselves. Now, when it comes to the injury report, C.J. Board and Darnay Holmes are questionable for the Giants. Meanwhile, for the Birds, Ertz, Sanders, Jackson, Driscoll, and Wallace are all questionable for Philly. Give me the New York Football Giants plus 6 and the over 44.5 in that game. And before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines and personal leans out for NFL Week 7. Happy Monday to you. Hopefully you guys are coming off a great weekend, a fantastic weekend. Now, before we dive into some more free content right here on YouTube, I just want to quickly remind you once again that we are currently 3-0 in our last 3 Dog of the Day tier package picks on patreon.com/Brock Page. And access to that particular package costs just $4.99. We're also hitting at 65% in our last 21 crowd pleaser teasers on that site as well. We currently have over 790 members signed up and active on that site. And if you want to join them and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/Brock Page. And moving on, we're going to take a look at the Lions squaring off against the Falcons, 1 p.m. Eastern start time this Sunday in Atlanta. The Falcons are the 3.5-point favorite. Total's 56 and a hook. The Lions are plus $1.35 for an outright win. And if you like the Lions catching the 3.5, they're minus $1.18, getting the job done against the number. Now, Detroit's coming fresh off a solid 34-16 victory over the Jaguars. They actually held the Jags to just 3 first-half points en route to their 3-score victory. Now, the Detroit Lions have won 2 out of their last 3, and that's also going to include a 26-23 victory over the Arizona Cardinals. Actually shut out Arizona in the final 15 minutes to get the W in that one as well. Detroit's won 2 out of their 3 road games this season, and they're averaging 27 points a game. Matthew Stafford's throwing for nearly 250 per contest with 9 touchdowns. One of his favorite targets has been Kenny Golladay, who's got 14 catches for 224 yards and a couple of scores. Tight end T.J. Hawkinson also caught 17 balls for $197 and 3 touchdowns. Detroit's averaging nearly $120 a game on the ground, and that's mostly in part to Adrian Peterson and DeAndre Swift. Now, Peterson's carried it 69 times for 285 and a couple of scores. He's averaging 4.1 yards per carry. And rookie DeAndre Swift has scored 3 times on the ground, and he's averaging 6.1 yards per carry himself. Swift's also caught it 16 times out of the backfield for $131 and a touchdown. This Detroit offense has turned it over just 4 times, 0 fumbles for the Lions skill players either. They are taking on an Atlanta squad who, despite coming off a win against Minnesota just yesterday, they still lost their first 5 straight games of the 2020 campaign to pretty much put themselves out of contention, right out of the blocks. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, they give up 31 points a game, and they've gotten to the quarterback defensively just 8 times in 6 games. Now, Atlanta's gone a winless 0-3 straight up at home this season, and when it comes to the total, 2 out of both teams' last 3 contests stayed under the total of 56.5 points. So I got to imagine we're going to see this total, betting-wise, continue to be driven upwards. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Vitae and Crosby are currently listed as questionable for the Lions. So with all that said and done, regardless of those injuries, I'm going to lean toward the underdog Lions catching the 3.5 and the under 56 and a hook in that contest. Next matchup, Cleveland Browns versus the Cincinnati Bengals, 1 p.m. Eastern start time. The Browns are the 3.5 point favorite on the road, totals 51 and a hook. The Bengals are plus $1.50 for an outright win. Cincy's coming off yet another 1-score game yesterday. Didn't quite get the W, but controlled a good portion of the game against a very good Indianapolis squad. And for the exception of their Week 5 loss against Baltimore, the Cincy squad is losing by an average of just 4 points a game in their losses. They are highly competitive. The Bengals are averaging a solid 270 yards a game through the air. Joe Burrow's completing 65% of his passes for over 1,600 yards. Tyler Boyd's caught 37 passes for 416 yards and a score. He's averaging 11.2 yards per reception. And T. Higgins also has caught 22 passes for 339 yards and a couple of scores himself. Higgins is averaging 15.4 yards per reception himself. And when it comes to the Cincinnati running game, it really hasn't been all that bad either. They are averaging 102 yards a game on the ground. Joe Mixon, he's carried it 119 times for 428 and 3 scores. And when it comes to this Bengals defense, as much as they have struggled in many spots this year, they still have taken it away 7 times so far this season. 6 interceptions out of the secondary. Now, Cincy's lone victory on the season did indeed come at Paul Brown Stadium, since he also successfully covered the number in their first meeting with Cleveland. Nice little backdoor cover late in the game back in Week 2 on a Thursday night. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, 3 out of the Bengals' last 5 ball games got over the total of 51.5 points. Meanwhile, Cleveland's last 4 straight got over that number themselves, of course, throwing out yesterday's game against the Steelers. And when it comes to the injuries in this one, definitely want to keep an eye on Baker Mayfield. I think he'll play, but he has been listed as questionable once again, battling a rib injury for the past couple of weeks. With all that said and done, give me the underdog Bengals plus 3.5, keeping this one close at home, and the over 51 and a hook in that ball game. All right, next matchup. It is going to be Packers taking on the Texans, 1 p.m. Eastern start time in Houston. The Packers are the 3-point favorite on the road, totals 56. Now, the Texans are plus $1.50 for an upset win. The Texans gave up 42 points to the Titans in overtime yesterday to lose their 5th game of the season. This Texans defense has allowed 28 points or more in 5 out of their 6 contests on the season. They're averaging just 0.6 takeaways per contest, while this Houston secondary has just 1 interception on the year. Houston's just 1-2 straight up at NRG Stadium, but it's not just the defense who's having all the problems in Houston. Deshaun Watson's been sacked 19 times, while this Texans rushing attack is gaining only 85 yards a game on the ground. They're taking on a 4-1 Green Bay squad who, despite getting blown out by the Bucs yesterday, pretty bad loss, they still averaged 275 yards a game through the air. Aaron Rodgers has completed 66% of his passes for nearly 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns. And for the exception of 2 rare Aaron Rodgers interceptions yesterday, this Packer team hasn't turned the ball over at all this season. Running back Aaron Jones carried it 75 times for 389 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also caught it 18 times for $161 and 2 scores. Meanwhile, defensively, Zadarius Smith continues to shine. 5 sacks on the season, 7 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery. Now, the Packers' last 2 straight games did stay under the total of 56 points. Meanwhile, 5 out of Houston's last 6 ball games stayed under that number themselves. Armstrong, Kute, Heck, Akins, Kalambayi, and Howell, they were all out this past Sunday versus the Titans. Keep an eye on them this week. Meanwhile, on the Packers side, Bakhtiari, Savage, Lancaster, Nickerson, King, and Irvin, they've all been battling injuries as well. Give me the Packers -3 and the under 56 in that contest. Next matchup, Panthers taking on the Saints. $1 p.m. Eastern kickoff in the Dome. The Saints are -7.5. Totals 51. The Panthers have won 3 out of their last 4 ball games, including victories against the Falcons, Cardinals, and Chargers. Matter of fact, this Panther defense held their opponents to just 17 points per contest in those 3 wins. This Carolina D has forced 9 turnovers, including 4 interceptions from the secondary. Deontay Jackson has a pair of interceptions for the Panthers, 5 pass deflections, and 11 tackles. Jeremy Chin leads this Carolina defense with 49 tackles. He also has 3 pass deflections and an interception. Carolina is also gaining 117 yards a game on the ground offensively. Mike Davis is the go-to guy now, 4.3 yards per carry. He's averaging a couple of scores for him. Meanwhile, the very efficient Teddy Bridgewater is completing 71% of his passes for nearly 1,700 yards. His favorite target's been Robbie Anderson, who's already caught 40 balls for 566 yards and a touchdown. Robbie's averaging 14 yards per reception. Now, the Panthers have outright victories in 2 out of their 3 road games this year. They're taking on a Saints team who dropped 2 out of their last 4 themselves, giving up 32 points a game during that stretch. Now, total-wise, all 5 of New Orleans' contests on the season got well over the total of 51 points. When it comes to the injury report, Janoris Jenkins, Michael Thomas, Deontay Harris, Justin Hardy, and Nick Easton are all questionable for New Orleans. Meanwhile, on the Carolina side, Burris and Samuel are questionable. Apple, Hamilton, and Daly, they all sat out yesterday against the Bears. Give me the Underdog Panthers +7.5, keeping this one close, and the over 51 in that contest. All right, next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Battle of the Unbeatens, and I am all over the place when it comes to this board here. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. Steelers taking on the Titans, 1 p.m. Eastern start time. Steelers are -2, totals 52.5. The Titans are +$1.15 for some money line cash. But as good as Tennessee's been, they've given up 30 points or more in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. They allowed 32 points per contest in those 3 games. And as a matter of fact, they blew a 21-10 halftime lead against the Texans yesterday and gave up 26 second-half points to push that one into overtime. They did get the W but certainly sloppy play. They play very sloppy. Tennessee's giving up nearly 275 yards a game through the air and 5.1 yards per carry on the ground. The Titans have also gotten to the quarterback just 7 times all season defensively. Now they're taking on a Pittsburgh squad who's coming fresh off a 31-point drubbing of the Cleveland Browns. They held Cleveland completely scoreless in the second half en route to a 38-7 victory over their divisional foe. Pittsburgh's averaging over 31 points a game, and they rush for nearly 140 yards a game on the ground. Now, James Conner's carried it 75 times for 369 and 4 scores. And Big Ben's also completing nearly 70% of his passes for 11 touchdowns. One of his favorite targets has been the youngster Chase Claypool. 17 grabs, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns. Juju Smith-Schuster, who's double-teamed and keyed in on an awful lot, he's got 23 catches for $194 and 3 TDs. Pittsburgh's converted on 86% of their fourth down attempts, and defensively, Pittsburgh's held their opponents to 21 points or less in 4 out of their 5 ball games. Now, Pittsburgh sacked the quarterback a staggering 24 times, and they have 8 total interceptions. Bud Dupree has 5 sacks on the season, TJ Watt with 4.5. Meanwhile, corner Steven Nelson's got himself a pair of interceptions from the secondary. 17 total tackles on the season for Nelson as well. Now, total-wise, Pittsburgh's coming fresh off a contest that stayed under the total of 52.5 points. And as a matter of fact, 4 out of the Steelers' 5 contests on the season stayed well under that number as well. Tennessee, on the other side, saw their Week 1 matchup with the Broncos stay well under 52.5 themselves. And when it comes to the injury report here, Lawan and Smith are questionable for Tennessee. Wilson, Munyard, Dickerson, Compton, and Jackson did not play against the Texans. Meanwhile, the Steelers, on the other side, they did suffer a significant loss to this defense. Linebacker Devin Bush tore his ACL against Cleveland yesterday and is out for the season. Huge loss for their defense there. Now, Marquise Pouncey and Mike Hilton are also questionable for the Steelers here. Johnson, Gentry, DeCastro, Gilbert, and Davis missed action against Cleveland as well. But I do think that the defense will give the Steelers the upper hand in this matchup here. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers -2 on the road and the under 52.5 in that contest. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our quick pick recap brought to you by patreon.com/BrockPage. I like the Giants +6 and the over 44.5 in that game. I like the Lions +3.5 and the under 56 and a hook. I like the Bengals +3.5 and the over 51 and a hook. I'm also leaning toward the Packers -3 and the under 56. I like the Underdog Panthers +7.5, keeping that one close, and the over 51. And last but certainly not least, I'm leaning toward the Steelers -2 and the under 52.5 in that ball game. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind we'll bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.